$60 times 350,000. We're millionaires. Sadly, that's not really how it works. Canaro Player here, bringing you the breaking, broken Arrow news. Today we've got a developer update talking about what's coming in the next major update, when it is, and so on. So let's get to it. So first things first, Broken Arrow launched last week and it's been a tremendous success. So yeah, everybody knows this just from looking at the player numbers. Look, there's 27,000 people playing right now. You go look at Wano, it's about 1,700. And yeah, hundreds of thousands of copies sold, and the number of players in the game has never gone under 10,000 once since launch. So I did actually have to look this up. And you see that last night it went to 10,569. But generally, you know, the peaks are about 30k, although it's been going down, and on the weekends it's a bit higher. You can also play the game without buying it on Steam, so like the Russians can buy it a different way, I believe. So yeah, that affects the player counts. But yeah, it has never gone below 10,000 since launch, according to this at least. So yeah, tremendous success. In terms of how many copies we think they've sold, it's difficult to get perfectly accurate information because Steam changed the way their database works a few years ago. So these are estimations. So the lowest estimation is 265,000, and the highest estimation is 465,000. So call it a solid 350k. You get these people and they're like, wow, $60 times 350,000. We're millionaires. Sadly, that's not really how it works. So we can go through it. Basically, first things first, Steam takes 30%. No, first things first, the game doesn't cost $60 everywhere. If you look at this, it's actually significantly cheaper in most of the world by population. So the Americans are paying 50 for the base edition, 60 for Vanguard. Brits are actually paying more. We're paying basically 60 for the base and 70 for Vanguard, so that's not great. As are the Euros and the Eurovision Song Contest participants, right? And there was that whole saga about Poland. But basically, not everybody's paying $50, right? If you think there's a very substantial Chinese population playing this game, and they're paying half that. They're paying less than $25. And the Russians are paying even less from... There's a lot of things up here. Well, it's about the same, actually. So, yeah. Average sale price is not going to be $50 or $60. This is the default edition, and that's the Vanguard edition, right? It's going to be closer to about 30 by player count. There's a lot of Chinese people playing this game. But yeah, let's say 40. Let's be kind to them and say $40 sale price. Steam takes 30% of that. Just off the bat, Steam takes 30%. So so you've got, I got Excel up here, right? 300,000 copies sold. Average sale price is going to be about $40. I mean, we're being kind to them here. I think I just have to write 40. And Steam takes 30%, right? So, I believe they call it the net, or is it the gross? Anyway, so that's how much, this is how much, flipping heck, I'm regarded. No wonder I don't have my PhD yet. So this is how much money's coming in, 12 million, whatever. Yeah, about 12 million. And then you gotta, so like, Steam cut, it's 30%, right? Well, it's 0.3 as a ratio, right? So this times by, 1 minus that. So get rid of the Steam cut, you've now got 8.4 million. We're rolling 8.4 million, yeah. Not really that simple either. So essentially, the way this game works is you have the developers, Steel Baklava, whatever, and then you have the publisher, Slytherin. Now, from what we can understand, we might be wrong about this, Slytherin has been paying for the game's development, because the game has been developed for 5 years, and these guys have been working full-time on the game. So how have they been sustaining themselves? Maybe they've all got second jobs, and that's why it took so long. But chances are you can get deals where the publisher will give you money to pay for the game. So typically, if the publisher is just doing the advertising, they typically take publisher cut lowest, well, it would be 30%. They would typically take 30%. If they're just doing the advertising, they'll say, look, we're marketing your game, so we're taking 30%. If the publisher's paying for the development, they typically operates on like a sliding scale. So what they'll say is, well, listen, we paid for the development, so the first X million that you make, we're going to take 90% of it. In some cases, it's actually 100%. I've seen some contracts like that. So if you're wondering, I have made video games, not professionally, but I have made video games. This is why I know about these things. And also, I'm the world #1, video game developer, right? So the lowest publisher cut's typically about 20 to 30%, and at the high end, it can be 90 to 100%. And it's typically a sliding scale, and they'll say, we get our costs back, and then it goes to 30%. So how much do you reckon they paid for the development? Well, we can estimate. It always has to be an estimate. So this is the game, right? And then these are the credits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. This guy's literally called Bender. Then we've got 3D artists, which we'll get to at something else. 2D artists, illustrators, voice acting. These are typically contractors. You would pay somebody to make a T-14 Armata as opposed to paying them a salary. So what were we at? Like 14? And publisher cut highest is literally 100%, right? But let's assume that it's on that sliding scale model where they say, as soon as you've paid back our development costs, you get the money, right? Or, it goes down to 30% once we've recovered our development costs. So they've been working on the game for 5 years. Development time, well, actually, 5 years, right? And there are 4 employees to pay, 14. There's also former employees, so I'm being very fair to them here, because if you actually look at this and scroll down, sadly there's no scroll wheel, but if you scroll down, it also talks about former employees. The playtesters do it for free, Lamau. Former employees, so these guys will have been paid for, a lot of the life cycle of the game, so that's another 6 there, right? So let's be fair to them, let's just call it 15. Right, how much do you reckon they get paid? Or better yet, how much do you reckon it costs the publisher to pay them? Which is not the same thing. So if you're an office worker in the UK, they typically say whatever you're paid, it costs the company double to employ you. That is because they have to pay for the lighting, the chairs, the seating, the taxes, and the building, and they got to pay for somebody to clean the toilets that you keep pooping in. They got to pay somebody to stock the vending machines, whatever. So typically they say it's twice the cost, but these guys are all working from home, right? So it's less. Also, they're Russian, so it's less. So let's be very, very generous, and let's say that it only costs $30,000 per employee, which is very low actually. But given a lot of them are in Russia, maybe it only costs Slytherin £30,000 a year to employ these guys, to keep them alive. It is an approximation, right? So salary is 30,000, right? So 30,000 times 15 for 5 years is can I get some zeros in that? Can I get some commas? It's 2.25 million, right? So new money, it's gonna keep going down, by the way. Is this minus that, 6 million, we're in the money. Yeah, not exactly. Then we have to consider all this. So what's going on here? Basically, when you launch the game, you see all these words. What do they mean? You have to pay for software to help you make the game, right? Unless you're big brain and you use the Godot game engine, yeah. You got to pay for the software. So, like, what is this software? Speedtree is an obvious example. I love using this example. This is Speedtree. It makes trees. All right, it makes trees look nice. They use it in movies. They use it in games to make the trees look nice because every tree has to look different, and you can basically build your own tree. If I just show you this, so this is kind of what it looks like. So you say, you know, these are the kind of branches I want. This is what I want it to look like, and it'll build the tree. So you don't have to come in and literally draw the whole tree. You just say, I want it to have petals of this color. I want the leaves to be this droopy. I want this many leaves, right? And it'll say, this is how many branches I made. This is how many trees I made. And what it also means is if you've got a forest, all the trees will look different as opposed to them all looking the same. So that's Speedtree. You got to pay for Speedtree. Let's be generous to them and say they were only paying $20 a month per Speedtree license. So the way this works is you actually pay for the number of computers you want running Speedtree. But they should be paying this version. But I reckon they'll probably like, oh, I'm weak, $20 a month, right? But they should be paying $300 a month for Speedtree. The game is made in something called the Unity game engine. How much does that cost? Quite a lot. Once again, this is per computer that uses the Unity game engine. So the music guy is not going to need access to the game engine, all right? But the guy who's making the maps, the guy who's doing the programming, you know, the guy who's well, yeah, there'll be several programmers and so on. The guy who's importing the 3D models into the game, right? They will all need Unity licenses. So $200 per seat, which is $200 per person per month. Right. Let's say that only 5 of them need access to Unity. It's probably I think more like 7. I think 7 is probably more reasonable, frankly. Right? 7 Unity developers, right? It's in months. So that's 5 times 12 is 60, right? Unity license fee is it's $200 per month, right? Unity money is gonna be 7 times 60 times 200. So that's £84,000 just for the engine, right? And then you got to pay for all the other licenses. So what are these other ones? Houdini is like a procedural generation thing, which I don't really know too much about, but you do have to pay for it, right? I looked it up beforehand. We spoke about Unity. Boom Library. So basically the sounds that you get in your game, people will go out and record sounds, and then you can buy them. And that's what that is. So you have to pay for those. Fmod, I'm actually not sure. And then, these are like music things. This is how they made the music for the game. At least this one definitely is Fmod. I can't remember DG Galaxy Network. It might be a music thing. So you got to pay for all these things, right? You got to pay for all these things. The NVIDIA one's interesting. Basically, NVIDIA used to pay people to make their games run badly on AMD cards. So this might actually be NVIDIA's paying them, but we'll just forget about it. So yeah, that's the Unity money, right? All the licenses and stuff. Let's be, total licenses. Let's be very generous to them and say it's £100,000 in just licenses, right? So, new money. This one hasn't gone down so much, right? Then you gotta pay for the models, right? So when we're in here. We spoke about how we've got all these 3D modelers. So typically what happens when you're trying to make a 3D game is that... Because look, you see this guy's... okay. I'm just looking for 3D modeler. Yeah, so do you see how they've got 2 3D artists? A 3D animator, which is like cutscenes, But yeah, two 3D artists, but then they've also got all these 3D artists. Basically, they're buying the models off people, and that gives you a model file. Then you need to put that model into the game, and that requires a lot of effort as well, right? All this artwork has to be paid for as well, so they've got 2D artists, right? Olga drew the character portraits, you gotta pay her. All the voice actors you gotta pay. All these guys you gotta pay, right? I'm pretty sure the playtesters do it for free. That's how it works in Eugen, anyway. So you know, let's call it 500,000. I mean, it is an estimation, right? So you know, models, voice actors, you know, localization. You got to pay the translators, Jannies. Play testers do it for free. Sorry, I'll just get rid of that. I guess it doesn't need to be there. Let's call it 500,000. I mean, so yeah, now it's a bit less again, right? And there are lots of costs that I basically won't have covered. So that's then the money after, because basically the publisher will foot all these fees because they don't have the money, right? You don't have well, maybe you do have 500,000, in which case you can join as a generous channel joiner, generously joining the channel. They get the names on the screen, they get the videos early, they get members exclusive videos. One join at the lowest level is worth 2,000 views, so if you're feeling bad about your ad block, it's a great way to support the channel. And if you've got a cheeky 500,000, yeah, the super chat button's right down there. But yeah, basically the publisher will foot these costs, right? So let's say the publishers paid all this. They paid the salaries. They paid the license fees. They paid the you know, the models, voice actors, localizations, right? Server hosting. That's another one we haven't talked about, right? How much is server hosting? I couldn't tell you personally. I have made multiplayer games, but I only hosted them on my own machine, so I didn't have to pay for it. Server hosting isn't actually that expensive. The main issue is that it's a monthly cost. It's not something you just pay. Right now, there's
Hello.
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
Subscribe to the channel.
Right now, there's 30,000 people connected to the servers. You got to pay for that. How much is that? I couldn't really tell you. Let's say it's already baked into this. You know, for a while, right? So this is the money, right? And then the publisher's gonna, because he's already taken everything he used to fund the development, then he's just gonna take 30%. So he'll take 30% of whatever's left, right? Times 0.7. And then you've got, you know, a cheeky, I wish it would, you know, do the comma thing more. Comma thing? Yeah. Oh, it should be in dollars, really. The dollar's quite weak at the moment. And the last time that happened was in 2007, right before the big smash. Oh, whatever. You can just believe me, bro. It's in Bitcoin, yeah. Anyway, 3 million, right? 3.8 million. Okay, that's still not bad. That's still not a bad amount of money, actually, right? Then you got to pay your taxes. So, Steel Balaclava are in Russia, which means they probably don't pay any taxes. But either way, taxes are usually about 20% for corporation tax. And that's taken after all your other costs, I believe. So it would actually be 20% of this, not 20% of this, I think. So that times by 0.8. You know, you're still looking at a cheeky 3 mil, right? Now, who gets the money? That depends, really. But yeah, the game has done well. The game has done well. But yeah, you don't just think, wow, 12 mil, you know, 3 mil, I think, right? And then you give that to the employees. Let's say 15 employees, right? And they all get a juicy cut of the... I mean, this is probably not how it's going to work. Basically, the company will keep most of the money, and they'll use that to pay the employees a salary, and they may also get commission, right? But let's just throw logic and reasoning out the door and say, you know, per employee... Oh yeah, you're getting a cheeky bonus this year. Whoa, cheeky £207,000. Nice. Anyway, Taxman comes and he takes 40%. So employee taxes, not corporation taxes, right? So then he takes 40%. So you're left with about 60%. Depends on the country, right? It's still a cheeky 124 grand, down from 12 million. But I hope that gives you some insight into the fact that they're not all millionaires now. We're just being a bit tongue-in-cheek when we say that they are. So I hope that helps. A bit of an aside. Anyway, yeah, the game has done well. The game has done well. And while no game is perfect, the response from the community has been incredible, and we're just getting started. We've been closely monitoring feedback, and we know there are some points that stand out more than others. Lack of a save game feature mid-mission in single player, so this was raised by the guy called Worth. Hey, when I was typing in the channel name, I accidentally muted myself because my mute hotkey is on closed bracket because I'm an idiot. And basically, he lambasted the game for not having a save. He said, you know, these missions, they take 1 to 2 hours. I'm an actual adult instead of some YouTube shitposter like me. And so I need time to save the game. And it's got no save. So it wasn't really something I considered because I don't have like a bunch of screaming kids. But given that most strategy gamers tend to be like, you know, 30s, 40s at this point, they tend to be kind of middle-aged men. Yeah, you need a save, really, because I got to take the kids to school or whatever. So I get it. It should have had a save. Now, they actually say... well, okay, we'll get back to it. Problems with people leaving mid-game in multiplayer. So yeah, this is so common. If you play in a 5-stack, it doesn't really bother you too much because... well, you know your teammates, right? But yeah, there's so many games where you just push a guy and he just immediately quits. Frankly, I think it's nice that they don't force us to play these 45-minute games every time. But if you're playing solo, which you should never, ever do, but if you are playing solo, listen, just join a Discord and find some people to play with, alright? My Discord will be linked in the description. You can do that. If you don't want to do that, just find a different one. Don't play the game by yourself. It really is awful. Anyway, you would get mad because your teammates left and now you basically can't win. So this is for 2 reasons. One, you get more income, right? But you have to micro more and you can't micro as effectively. 2, your availability doesn't go up. So this was a problem Warno solved absolutely ages ago. If somebody leaves, the availabilities... No, hang on. Warno unsolved it. Wargamer Dragon solved it. In Warno, the AI takes over and the AI is retarded. In Wargamer Dragon, if they leave, you get additional availability on your units. So instead of only being able to bring 2 T14 Armatas, you can bring 3. Because even if your income goes up, you're still locked in the number of things you can buy. So you can't win. Because if the enemy just pushes you with a bunch of tanks and you all buy your tanks, you will still not have enough tanks because one guy isn't bringing his tanks and your availabilities haven't gone up. So even though you have more points, you can't spend it on what you actually need. So they do need to fix that. The anti-cheat system needs to be fine-tuned and improved. I mean, this is typical marketing speak. The anti-cheat system is not fit for purpose. The anti-cheat system is diabolically awful. There's no way around it. Just trying to get up the Broken Arrow Discord here. If you want to see what I'm talking about, you can go down to potential cheaters in the Broken Arrow Discord. Right? They've now told people to stop sending things here because they're not going to read them anymore. So they're not even addressing my concern. Oh no, hang on. Oh wow, well that's new. That wasn't there last time I checked. That's cool. So there you go. They are checking the Discord. Well, I'm going to have to edit this part out. They are still checking the Discord. But they, yeah, okay, so I've made a mistake there. They are still checking the Discord because clearly this guy has just said they're checking the Discord. Last I read was this one, actually, but there you go, I was wrong. So there you go. So they got back to me. There was a guy cheating and they banned him. Already banned before. I mean, we'll see. Unless he's, it depends when it was, right? Anyway, they told people to start emailing the email address. So that means that these aren't even all the cheating reports because you've also got to email the email address, and you can see how many there are. And there's also a way to report them in game. So there are a lot of cheaters. Some of these are false positives, right? And but look, this isn't even the bottom of it. I thought it would actually end here. No, it just keeps going. It just keeps going. So there's a lot of cheaters. Blimey, it just keeps going. Oh my god. Yeah, what can I say? So I don't even know where that ends. So there's a lot of cheaters. We can talk a bit about the anti-cheat. It's very strange. So, I've made multiplayer games. I think I covered this. Look, people tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. Look, I even own a book on how to make multiplayer games, right? I've made multiplayer games. I know vaguely how this works. Basically, there's two ways you can do it. You have clients, the computers, the player, you call it the client. And then you have the server, which is running the game, right? In this, you're always on a server. So if you look at most strategy games, it's called peer-to-peer. So it's just your computer connects directly to the other guy's computer, and you just send transmissions back and forth. This game has the huge advantage that it's always on a server. It always seems to be on a server. So the server's always there, and basically you can either have so it's called authority, right? Who's in charge? Because who's in charge of that dynamic? In most games, the server has the authority, right? So the server will say, this is how many points you have to spend, or better yet, to reduce lag, both the client and the server will calculate that number, because if you lag to the server, you don't get your income otherwise, right? Because the server can't tell you how much, so you actually calculate it locally. But you have something called server authority, which means that the server wins. So if you say, because you're a wonderful hacker from an unknown country, you say, I actually have 10 million income, the server will say, no you don't, fuck off, and then you have 300 income, or it just bans you. This game doesn't have that. This game, the programming is basically, if you're making a multiplayer game, in this book it actually talks about it, and in all the courses I've been on, it always talks about this. This is what is considered a rookie mistake in games programming, letting the client decide what's going on. It is seen as an elementary mistake. I get a lot of people who just insist on sticking their nose very far up the rectum of the game developers. Maybe they want a bit of that money, right? Maybe they'll send you a bit of that 124 grand. But basically, this is an elementary mistake. And the only way they can fix it is to reprogram the entire game from scratch. Or at least the whole multiplayer side. That's never going to happen. So where does that leave us? There are still ways to try and combat the cheating problem. I assumed they would use an off-the-shelf solution, such as easy anti-cheat, but they decided not to do that, even though it's free. So that means you got to do things the hard way. So there are ways to do it. Basically, you've got the server, and for some reason the client is predicting its own income and just choosing its own rules. The client can also say how fast its own tanks fire. These are all very strange situations, but basically the server can just run some basic checks once every couple seconds, right? If you're worried about server performance, you can run it once every couple seconds. It's worth saying that server performance isn't the same thing as FPS. FPS is how fast your client renders all the graphics. Server performance is how fast the server does all the calculations for the multiplayer. The server performance seems fine, the FPS seems very bad. So basically, once every few frames, once every few seconds, the server can just run a basic check, because the way you get your income is entirely deterministic. If you buy X, you lose that much income. If you have this many units on the field, you lose that much income. So the server should also be calculating how much income you should have. And once every couple seconds, it can just check how much income is this guy saying he has compared to how much he should have, right? And if it's wrong, the server can just ban you. That's an extreme approach because it might be that there was a desynchronization. It might be that there was a bit of lag. Let's say you just sold something and then the check happens, but on your screen you sold it and on the server it hasn't updated yet, and it'll say you shouldn't have that £2 extra. You're dead. So the better way of doing it is you just write, for starters, you write some robust code which takes those things into account, right? But what you do is you send these logs to a master server, and at the end of the game, right, you basically you quantify sus moments, okay? So if somebody has 3 T14 Armatas, even though the maximum you can get in a spec is 2, right, that is a sus moment. It might have been given to him by somebody else, so you check that as well. And you build up these sus moments. Here's another one. Why is that Factoria shooting the entire range of the map? Why does this Factoria have a kill on this unit and the distance between them was 15,000 meters? That is a sus moment. And you add up all these sus moments, and basically, when a threshold is reached, you say, you're cheating, and you ban him. And you can either do that over the course of one game, or you can send it to a master server, and the master server will say, player Mandarin characters has had 12,000 sus moments in the past 15 games. Ban him, right? So that's another way of doing it. I don't understand why that hasn't already been done, because I am a bad game developer and I already know to do that. So that, it does leave me scratching my head, but we'll see. I mean, that would be the obvious way to go, and it would deal with all the obvious cheats. You would no longer see massive conga lines. You would no longer see somebody shooting 7 nukes at once. You wouldn't see somebody shooting across the entire width of the map. The more subtle cheats, such as always being able to see where your enemy is, that heuristic would find that difficult to quantify, right? Those checks would find that hack specifically difficult to quantify, but it would deal with the most blatant, egregious hackers, the guys with the extra income, the guys with the extra availability, the guys with the infinite range, the guys with the infinite speed. You could just put in very, very basic ass checks that could just remove all that. So frankly, I mean, what am I supposed to say? There's no point just lambasting them. But yeah, it's really quite appalling that these things are happening. Some more issues with connectivity and stability. So yeah, this is the other one, and this is tied to this. So a lot of people leave the game, but usually it's because, well, okay, if you're in a 5-stack, you'll know this. Your friends, they just get disconnected and they can't reconnect. So yeah, hopefully they do fix that. In the first week, the team has been hard at work to fix the most immediate problems. There shouldn't be a comma before and. They started addressing skirmish mode, localizations, and multiplayer stability. So it's great to hear, because last time I spoke to the devs, they said they were going to have a massive holiday after the game came out. So it's nice to know they're actually working on the game. So what is coming with update 1.08? We sat down with the developers to discuss what is coming next for Broken Arrow. The next patch is going to be 1.08, and it's going to be a big one. Yeah, because we're on 1.07. Compared to the immediate hotfixes on launch week, this update will be larger and will need more thorough testing, so we're currently targeting the week of 7th July for its release. Okay, so that's next week. That's not so bad. I'm going to reduce how much Broken Arrow I play this week because, frankly, I'm appalled. But I'm not really. The game is wonderful, but the technical side really is a massive dumpster fire. One thing I have noticed is that they haven't spoken about improving the FPS, and I think that's a big shame. The most obvious reason I think it's a big shame is that certain maps have like half the FPS of other maps, and that means that there's something wrong with those maps, right? So there's either too much detail in the background, or they've spawned a bunch of shit underwater that they shouldn't have done. Certain maps, if you look in certain directions, your FPS drops to 20. That's something they can fix by changing the map. So I would hope that they would do that at some point. But what can I say? Let's have a look at what's going to happen. So not that, apparently. First of all, improvements to stability, both offline and online, so that's wonderful. Fix the most significant problems related to memory consumption. Yeah, this was a funny one. I was talking to a guy, and he said the game makes 5 gigabytes, it was 4.5 gigabytes of temporary files after you launch it. Because he said he was playing the game, and then he ran out of hard drive space. Because the game is just generating all these temporary files, which do get deleted once the game ends. So yeah, I think there is still a memory leak, but we'll see. I have been restarting my game after matches, and it makes the FPS go up. So there's definitely something going on there. Reconnect fixes and improvements. Update to the anti-cheat system. The possibility to choose between a small or large layout for the maps has been added for custom matches and skirmish for players looking for smaller matches than 5v5. The game will automatically select the layout corresponding to the number of players plus AI, but you can also force one layout or the other. Okay, so that's cool. You can play smaller versions of the same maps. The tower defense mode that was present during the beta is back and has been improved. Okay, so some more single player. What is coming after that? We will continue our work on fixing major issues and overall improvements of the game client as well as server-side software. We're going to address the issue of the lack of a penalty for players who leave during a multiplayer match. We're going to introduce shouldn't this be capitalized? Anyway, we're going to introduce a timeout system that will penalize leavers with progressively longer timeouts. Furthermore, we're planning on introducing a surrender option. So this is not coming 7th of July. So there's not gonna so on the 7th of July, or the week commencing 7th of July, which might mean that it's, might even be the 11th, but they tend not to release patches on Fridays because if it fucking breaks, then then they're on the weekend, right? So that it'll probably be, no later than the 10th, presumably. So there's not going to be a surrender option next week. There's not going to be a timeout system for leavers next week. And there's not going to be save games next week. So we're not going to stop our fight with cheaters, and we'll continue working on improvements for our anti-cheat. So those heuristics that I've mentioned just seem like the easiest way of getting some really quick wins on this cheating problem. Make the server check things. Why is this guy spawned 7 nukes in 10 seconds? Basic check. Basic check, right? How many nukes has this guy dropped this game? Why is it higher than is theoretically possible? How fast are the units going? And if you're worried about server performance, you don't do all the checks every frame. You do it you set a timer, and it's like every 10 seconds you check one thing, and you don't do all the checks at once, so that the server performance stays good. So that's if I was developing this game, that's where I'd take it, because it's a really easy way to deal with the most obnoxious cheaters. Dealing with the guys who can just see the whole map, that's actually a lot harder to do, because you can't tell. Because if you kill somebody from X distance away, as long as it's within the theoretical range of that unit, how do you know if you could see him or not? So that's harder to detect. As for save games, we know it's a highly requested feature, however, implementing it is more complex than it may appear. Currently, we're investigating our options to make your single-player experience more convenient. So, this game uses Unity. I'm used to an engine called Godot. In Godot, saving's actually really easy. You can literally just save the whole profile of the game with like a couple lines of code. But I assume it is not like that for Unity, otherwise they would have done it. And yeah, while it's no secret that we're planning on expanding the game with new factions and new DLCs, this post doesn't focus on that. We have plans, but we're not going to give any spoilers just yet. And there's a list to some of the technical problems. So okay, so there is still a RAM leak. Interesting. What? That's so weird. Low FPS despite good hardware. Well, that's me. I've got a better thing than this. Limit your FPS in the game using this formula. Your current average FPS plus 40 will boost your FPS. That's definitely a problem on their end. That is not the way that should work. But yeah, there's some some more fixes and stuff. So I hope you enjoyed that. I mean, we sort of covered the gamut about how much money we think they've made, how the anti-cheat system could be improved, some of the major problems. I mean, do you enjoy this kind of video, or do you feel like I'm just dragging it out? I feel like what I've spoken about is important, but you might just think that was a massive waste of time. So do let me know, and I'll see you in the next one. GG.